Hi, welcome, Kristyn. It's so nice to see you.
Nice to be here, Leona. Thanks for having me.
Oh, such a delight. So, for those of you who are listening and watching, Kristyn is a dietitian, and she helps women in particular find well-being, ease in their bodies in midlife, which is actually a miracle. So, we're going to talk about even how to find joy in our bodies in midlife. And so, I am delighted to have Kristyn. And Kristyn, this is a very loaded question, so answer it any way you will. And what does a healthy and possibly joyful relationship with one's body look like in midlife, especially for women? I know guys joke about the dad bod, but I don't have a dad bod. I
No.
have a grandma bod. So yeah.
Yeah. A healthful and joyful relationship with your body means that we can fuel our bodies with confidence. We can create and sustain habits. We can break free from like cravings and binge eating, and we can reclaim our energy. So it's about really just having that, what can things look like now, and feeling confident that you are doing the things you need to do, and like separating that from our bodies, separating that from the outcome of our bodies. So many of us at this stage are looking to shrink our bodies, and it's starting to untease that and uncouple that and look at what do our bodies need at this stage.
And maybe that ties back. I read one of your blogs, and I'm going to have how you can sign up for Kristyn's blog, because I literally probably comment almost every time because I'm like, this is so amazing. And I don't do that for anybody else. So it's truly amazing. You said in one of your recent blogs, and I emailed back, I think immediately, was the first thing is that we need to nourish our bodies. And are there some practical tips or things for us to think about so the listeners can come away and think, oh, yeah, I've just got, even going back to like fitting in a certain size or whatever that is there certain things that you think across the board, whether it's, learning to trust ourselves more, what that might look like, or certain things that you think, oh, like, and it may be, I don't know, drink the water. Could you just give us some practical tips that you think apply across the board to almost anybody the listeners would benefit from?
100%. There's definitely things that women can do at this stage, and we can talk about like what are the things that get in the way of it. But I would say let's end the calorie hoarding and shift to a regular, consistent fueling throughout the day to stabilize our energy and stop those, the evening binges, or sort of the unplanned snacking that we may do because we're actually hungry. We can shift from diet by manipulation to nutrition for elevation. So just shifting that mindset of what are we hoping that food and nutrition will do for our bodies. We can do mindful check-ins with our bodies, like connecting in what might our bodies be telling us. For sure, hydration, keeping ourselves watered throughout the day, getting clothes that fit the body that you have right now, rather than sitting there and going like, oh, just another few pounds and I'll be able to fit into these clothes.
Which was another email that I, rapidly responded to. Get the clothes, stop waiting to fit into the clothes. And so is there a real, I think I know the answer, but I want the answer from the expert. In our 20s and 30s, we look a certain way that we thought, is healthy. Although I think we could have a 7-hour podcast and just get started about what we thought was healthy in our 20s and 30s. But tell me about the shift of what does healthy look like now in midlife compared to maybe what we thought it looked like, or even maybe 20 or 30 years ago, what society said, well, this is healthy. You eat cornflakes.
Totally.
Have a sandwich, with Velveeta slices. Only speaking for myself. So tell me a little bit about what does healthy eating look like, and nourishment look like in midlife, maybe compared to what it could have looked like either in our 20s and 30s or 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I think in our earlier years, healthy was synonymous with, manipulation and control. It was nutritional math and nutritional accounting, counting calories, counting numbers, counting points, and really trying to force our bodies into that sort of specific shape. And of course, at some point, we all realize that that stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work the way it used to, or it doesn't work anymore. It's not sustainable. And so in midlife, it's really about shifting our approach to nutrition for elevation to support our changing biology. We have different metabolic health, we have different cardiovascular health, we have different gut health, different bone mineral density, lean body mass, brain power, and mental well being. So it's really shifting and expanding beyond the weight into what are the other areas that we actually want to be thinking about so that 20 or 30 years in the future, we can get up off a toilet and be able to
I
live
want to
our
do that.
best
Yeah.
life. But, maintain that independence. We may not be thinking about that in our 50s and 60s, but 20 years from it's the stuff we do now that's going to help us maintain independence, but also be able to find the joy in our lives and be able to live our best life.
Which is so I never even really thought of what I'm nourishing myself with now. I mean, it makes sense. I just have not thought about it. I think of bone health, and I'm like, clearly that's not gonna show up in a test this afternoon. Yeah, what I had or didn't have, and that would be across, all genders as well. Speaking of nourishment, if there was something that you think is very important, and it may be just we didn't know about it when in our 20s and 30s, but in midlife, what are some of those key pieces that you think? You mentioned hydration a little bit. You mentioned nourishing our bodies. If there's something that we are focusing on, not obsessively, but just like, oh, have an extra bite of this, or consider adding a healthy oil instead of, what are some of those little tidbits that you would leave us with today that are important for us to know?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about consistently fueling our bodies. And for some of us, that comes naturally and comes easily. But for other people, it's not easy. And so this idea of having 3 regular refuels in the day, that could be breakfast, lunch, dinner, that could be a meal 1, meal 2, meal 3. And why that's important is because many women are playing a calorie hoarding game, and so they're trying to get what's the least amount of food I can get away with today. And then sometime after 3 o'clock, the game stops and we feel out of control because we're actually hungry and our body's hunger hormones get dialed up really strong. And we feel like, I don't care. When the truth is, we do care. We're just really hungry. And so that can sound really simple, but that can be really profound. And then, of course, what's making up those meals? It doesn't need to be perfect in order to have made progress, but a couple of different types of foods there that can really help. So it's not just like a big bowl of cottage cheese. It could be a bowl of cottage cheese. Let's throw in some berries and maybe some chia seeds or some nuts or something in there so that we've got protein, but we have fiber. Fiber is not just about pooping. Fiber is about metabolic health.
This is going to be the quote that we take. So thank you. I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, I was just rushing through lunch and I'm like, okay, I have cottage cheese, I have high protein yogurt, I have ground flax, chia, but I felt like you were going to be my little dietary fairy. And I was like, is this good enough? Yeah, I think that's even the I've experienced that myself. I was a big intermittent faster because I thought that was very healthy. But then I was a craving maniac, and I wouldn't necessarily give into the cravings. I just would be in a battle nonstop from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then beating myself up, wondering, what is my problem? Why is everyone else on Instagram doing this? Which I'm joking about, but it was a terrible thing and leading to just mentally a huge struggle. And then I just recently heard somebody said, yeah, women should, because of how we're made up, and maybe this is a little different for everybody, but like eat fairly early in the morning. And for me personally, that changed a ton. So I eat almost as soon. I have some protein, not a chicken breast, but I put a little protein powder in my coffee that has like It's changed my whole life. And the biggest breakfast, like we were told at some point in the dietary phase, of eggs and a homemade flax muffin, with nuts. Oh, no, cheat seeds, no nuts. And it literally has changed that post 3 o'clock war.
And look at how much more mental capacity you have at that time where you're no longer battling with the cravings or the signals in your body. You're not even thinking about it because you're well fed and well watered. And now you can go on and live your life and helping people
Yeah.
find their joy.
And speaking of inner joy, because I'm not like beating myself up there's something wrong, that I can't intermittent fast for 16 hours. And then I had such low energy and nobody ever, naturopaths, whatever, ever asked what do you eat or when do you eat? Because I ate healthy, but the window was so small for me personally, it just wasn't a thing. So I love to hear that that's coming back and that is like, it is what we need. And that idea of calorie hoarding, I never heard that term before, but I was like, "Oh, dang, let's sick them into 4 hours a day." I like to get it when I can. So, yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
4 hours for everybody who's gonna, yeah, comment now on my eating disorder. But, yeah. What do you think is one of the biggest thing that women get wrong about their bodies in midlife?
Yeah, I think in midlife, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of changes just in our bodies, in our lives, in our work, in our families. And you can't diet your way through a biological transition. We can't outsmart our body with more restriction. Our body's not an enemy to be controlled. We need personalized support. Our bodies are biological beings first, and it's going to win pretty much every time. We need more nutrition, even if it means maybe less volume. So, how do we maximize what we're consuming at this really important stage? And that can be really helpful for women to understand, like, what is a healthy amount of food approximately for your body? A lot of us are, if we grew up in the 80s and 90s and 70s, we're used to, X amount of calories. And like that number often doesn't change for women as our bodies change, like what their reference calorie amount is. And so, I've got women where like they need a certain amount of food energy and they're quite a bit below that. And then it starts that whole shame spiral of what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? When it's that we're completely underfueled, we're starved, we're sweating. We think we need to starve and sweat our way through midlife, and that's just not how we wanna do this.
No, no. So what would you say is, if you took just like sort of generalized challenges that women are coming to you with, so they're like, I'm just struggling, and maybe it's what we've already talked about. And then by some, you talked about like personalized approach for them. What do they end up coming away with? And not even like specifics like a meal plan, but like what do they end up either experiencing as far as like freedom or what's the outcome that one has the possibility of achieving with working with someone with your expertise?
Yeah, yeah. So they feel like they can fuel their bodies with confidence and they have more ease with food. And that, again, they get more brain real estate left to so that they can start living their life. You're no longer obsessing all day about like, what do I eat with you know what to eat and you practice that so that you can go on and shift your energy somewhere else. Doesn't mean that we don't work at it. I think food and nutrition is something that it's like we can work at it, but we don't need to obsess about it. So we fuel with more confidence. We have better energy. If your body is fueled, you're naturally going to have a little bit better quality energy. The other work that I do in addition to the focus on food is really look at how does food bleed into other parts of our life. So that's things like stress, that's things like movement, sleep, mindset, approaches. How are we approaching food? Are you all in or are you all out? That's how so many of us have operated with food. If I'm not being all in and I'm perfect, well, F it. I've screwed the day. I'll just keep going and I'll start again tomorrow or on Monday, depending when this is happening. And so it's starting to get curious about those things and looking at like what would all or something thinking look like here, like and really redefining what is the floor? Like what's the minimum we want to commit to ourselves? And then we don't have to be at our ceiling all the time. We don't need to be doing everything. Like what are the most important things? And then what's sort of the icing on the cake?
It sounds this is not what you would ever use necessarily for marketing, but it sounds like grace and like good expertise, right? Just to be able to lay down that battle with food and our bodies, find some grace and ease with some grounded. Brene Brown talks about like the tools that we use that are steeped in good research as grounded confidence skills, and that sounds like what you give them, Kristen.
Oh, and that if the grace is one of the most important parts. If we don't have that self-compassion, we feel that we're fundamentally flawed and that we are bad, and then that shame spiral. But if we can learn to look at this and going like, I am doing the best I can. And maybe my nutrition is really off today in part because I had 3 hours of sleep last night. So there's hormonal things going on. Like there's so much happening. If we can develop some self-compassion, then we have this capacity to take on a bit of a growth mindset of, what can I learn from this? All of us have moments with food where like, oh, I wish that maybe had looked different. I didn't mean to maybe ah, I didn't mean to maybe have the third piece of carrot cake, but oh God, it was so good. Like, but what were the things that maybe made you more vulnerable to that? And can we move on? And can we move on?
Oh, so good. So good. I have so many questions to ask. Do you think that nourishing our bodies becomes more intuitive with age?
I think it can become more intuitive. I think it can become more intuitive. It depends on what keeps a person more stuck. And I've certainly worked with women who are beyond midlife and still wondering what's wrong with them after 50 years of dieting. Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I lose weight? And for that particular person, that, food isn't becoming intuitive because they're still stuck in that restriction and that expectation of when I lean into my nutrition, I expect my body to melt away. And of course, our bodies are going through a biological process and it's not the same anymore. It doesn't mean we lay over like a dead dog and say, there's nothing I can do. There's things we can do, but we need to really disentangle this weight from our worth and disentangle weight and start thinking beyond like, what are the other ways that we know our body is healthy? Mental well-being, cardiovascular health, bone mineral density, joy, spiritual health, like all of those bigger things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that you really value learning. You have a lot of expertise in a lot of things. I know we met also because you're a dietitian. And you're also like a certified coach. You have much expertise in all of this. So yeah, what a gift to be able to support people to find some peace and lay down their arms in the battle.
And that's hard to do depending on what a person's life experience has been in their family of origin. How do they connect, unsolicited comments about our food, unsolicited comments about our bodies. And, sometimes we need to add some people to the team to help the person in front of us to be able to move through that. And that's just about noticing with a ton of kindness about what is truly keeping a person stuck.
What is coming up for me and becoming so clear is that this sounds like a really holistic approach, that it's not just here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you are 56.5. Oh, nice. Yeah. You wear a scarf on your podcasts.
I think about it as like a two sort of bucket approach. One is the life preserver. Here's where I think like here's what's going to give you like a life preserver because I see that the person is drowning. So here's something to help like scoop them up. And then that bigger picture to really start to look at things a little bit more holistically. And that's the bigger journey. And I think it's a journey for all of us. It's really about understanding and aligning our nutrition with our values and our bigger life and how do we want to be with food and how do we want to be in our bodies and in our life at this stage.
We could all use a session or 8 just to figure that out.
Yeah.
So good. I want to talk a little bit about GLP-1s. You have some extra training in that also. And, so is there anything that you would say about women in midlife, about GLP-1s? I also responded to that on the blog that you sent out about GLP-1 and just think there's, my experience is that some people I'm hearing now, like, people will be over for dinner, say, "Yeah, I'm on it too on it," "Is anybody watching?" So I'd love just to kinda one of my areas of expertise is in Brené Brown's work, and we talk about shame, which doesn't make me very popular at dinner parties, but I'm always grateful when people can be brave enough to bring out something that they feel vulnerable about. So, can you just talk for a little bit about GLP-1s, what you're noticing, anything that you think would be helpful to know?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think 6% of the population are taking a GLP-1, maybe even more now, depending on whose, rates you're following. But I would say that your nutrition matters more when you're taking a GLP-1. There's a lot, these are very, very powerful medications that we want to pair with nutrition and movement and lifestyle. It's not GLP-1 or diet. It's actually, no, it's actually both. And what the GLP-1s do and are very effective is it takes care of, well, it does several things, but one of them is that it takes care of some of the intrusive food noise and the intrusive comments that, we're getting and thinking about food and obsessing about food. And we're like, we know we don't want to do this, but it's happening. There's a variety of reasons why that can happen. But what GLP-1s do is help to sort of turn the volume down on that. And so that we can continue to nourish our bodies and fuel our bodies. There's certain ways, certain nutrients that become very, very important. Protein, everyone's heard about protein. It's like the sweetheart, it's having its moment. Protein is important, but so are micronutrients. So are carbohydrates. We don't need to be low carb or non carb on a GLP-1, and we need hydration. We definitely need hydration. So there's so much. The things that worry me the most about GLP-1s is when people are just very scale focused and like I can it like, the scale often changes, but what we really want to be looking at is what is changing. We want to look at the body composition and our lean body mass as much as we can. From the age of 30, we start to lose 3 to 8% of our lean body mass per decade. And so over time, we're slowly losing our lean body mass, which is often why kind of in this midlife phase, we're like, my metabolism, like it's broken. It's not broken. It's not broken. Your body is changing. And so if we're talking GLP-1s, we want to make sure that we're adding in that strength training and cardiovascular training as well. So it's no longer about exercising to earn calories and burn calories. It's about finding ways to move our bodies so that we can feel strong and capable.
So, so good. It sounds like everybody who goes on a GLP-1 should have a session or 2 just to make sure they've got that dialed in. If you thought about some simple practices that make a real difference for people, and we're talking a lot about people in midlife, like you mentioned hydration, and I don't want to just talk about hydration, but my brain goes there. So I'm always like, is 8 cups enough? You see people walking around with like these 7-liter jugs that they can barely lift. Well, at least that they have good biceps, but you're like, what is up? So is there anything around hydration and then just some basic things? I love already you've mentioned like three meals, anything else that you would say? What are some simple tips?
I mean, hydration is about fluids. So it doesn't have to just be water. Not everybody loves water. Um, it can be cold water, it can be warm water. We can use herbal teas. It's actually a myth that coffee doesn't hydrate us. We used to say, like, for every cup of coffee, you must replace it with 2 cups of water. We don't say that anymore. That's not evidence-based. Um, I wouldn't recommend a person drink a pot of coffee and like, great, I've got my hydration, because that's too much caffeine. but the idea that what we're looking at for hydration is actually about fluids. Ideally, we'd like it to be non-energy containing fluids, but for things like it can be milk, it can be plant-based milks, like it can be that as well. So it doesn't have to just be water. Water is very good for us. It doesn't have to be either or.
Is the 8-cup thing minimum? Is that like a thing too? Is that science-based or not?
If you look at for women, the dietary reference intake for hydration is 2.9 liters a day. However, 20% of that can come from the foods that we eat. So that gets really confusing and very obtuse to work with. Like, what does that mean? So, somewhere around 2.5 liters throughout the day of fluids. And it's like for some people, it's not a problem, but for other people, we get really deeply engaged in our work and we don't realize how dry we are until we're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so tired and my mouth is so, so dry. So having some kind of structure in your life to easily fuel or hydrate with ease, that's really helpful. Something as simple, or I shouldn't say simple, but something as practical as having what you need in the house. So sometimes people, for whatever reason, they find meal planning is completely overwhelming, and it's just not something that works for them. And so something like, what do you need to have around you so that you can fuel your body with ease? And that can be, what does a standard shopping list look like, or shopping or grocery order look like for you? So what are the easy foods we need to have around for you? Is it eggs? Is it pre-done hard-boiled eggs? Is it bagged salads? Is it a veggie platter? Is it a bunch of fruit? Is it cans of tuna? Like, what is it? Different nuts or seeds. What is it that we need to have around so that you have simple access to foods so that you can fuel with ease, rather than it being like, okay, on this day, I'm going to plan out 7 different meals. Like,
Salad. I
yeah,
love that. And they love
yeah,
that you're even like the ease of, have some canned tuna, a bagged salad, if that makes things easier, a veggie platter. Cause I think we often think of it as complicated. And if we buy something in a bag, then it's, oh, well, I'm not doing it well if I don't like dip my own romaine lettuce in some sort of fancy filter. Yeah, sparkling water. So I love that. If you had 60 seconds to tell midlife women one thing about feeding and caring for their bodies with joy rather than fear, what would you say?
oh, that's 60 seconds. Okay.
I don't count. I don't do
um,
math, so you're fine.
okay. I would say that you can go through this phase of your life differently, that you don't have to be suffering and struggling and doing a bunch of nutritional math. Your body is asking for a new strategy, one that works for the body that you have today, not the body you wish for or the body that you had. We really need to shift from dieting for manipulation to nutrition and nourishment for elevating our body and our health. You deserve to feel strong, confident, and in charge of your life. We want to be adding more life to your life. And so let's maybe shrink the real estate that food's taking so that you've got more joy and ability to live in your body with more ease.
That was just my blessing. Everybody else can just take it. Yeah, secondhand. That was so good. I always ask everybody what's been bringing them joy lately. And I would love to hear, either personally or professionally, what has been bringing you joy, Kristyn.
Well, as you know, Calgary has been miserable the last couple of weeks with the cool weather. That's like
You mean
spring is
Christmas
just
on Saturday and Sunday?
right. Oh my goodness. So a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I got to go to Kelowna, and we did a little bike camp, just the two of us. We brought our road bikes out, and we out there's tulips, there's green grass, people are mowing their lawns. And so I got to do 3 days of cycling and just feeling the wind on my face, being out, around the wineries, and they have bike lanes. So I felt safe. So that's been giving me a ton of joy.
Yay. So good.
Yeah.
Had me at tulips. Um, So good. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Kristyn. I will include all the ways for people to connect with you in the show notes. Thank you so, so much for your
Okay.
time. This has
Welcome.
been an absolute pleasure. I feel like we might have to have a part two at some point and talk even
Yeah.
more about this. But thank you so much for
Yeah.
bringing me joy today and just reminding us that there's a different way. We don't have to fight anymore. We can find peace.
Yeah.
So, and you did that so marvelously today. So,
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Leona, for having me, and we'll look forward to chatting with you somewhere along the way.
Absolutely. Thank you.